Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And today is the special episode of Psychology Talks because today is the Suicide Prevention Day. And we have gathered experts from across the world. And today we'll talk about how we can prevent suicide, how we can help people who are struggling from suicidal thoughts, or even if we have our own, like maybe depression or something, so how we can overcome that. So, and this topic, like those who are following me, that this is very close to my heart because I have gone through myself those thoughts, and I know that it really is painful to experience that phase of life when you feel that there's no hope and there's no way to go out. But let me tell you, it is difficult, but it is not impossible to shut that phase, shut those thoughts out from your mouth, from your brain, and then see the world in a positive way. And that's why, like, we have gathered here to tell you that how we can do that and how we can help people who are struggling with those thoughts. So let's welcome our guest today, uh, who have actually agreed to join this panel. So thanks a lot, all of you, like Patrick, Barbara, Robert, and Michael, for joining us today for this noble cause. Um, Patrick is the founder of Sonqo's World, and Barbara is a professor. Robert is a servant leader, and Michael is the founder of Cortina Method. So please introduce yourself, and then we'll start our discussion. I'll start from Patrick because he's just on my right side and the first person there. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I feel so grateful and honored to be here today. Yes, Ambrin, it's been great, that journey that you and I have with various collaborations. And yes, suicide is really just as much close to my heart as it is to you. Yes, I know what it is like to consider suicide. And yes, I have been working with people who maybe have gone down that direction. And I feel it's very important. And I'm standing up for those who need to speak about it and maybe prevent and say no to suicide. That's me in
Yeah.
a nutshell about consciousness, mystic leader and guide. I love experiences that allow people to make their new choices and let go of what holds them back from living life to the fullest.
Yeah, yeah, your work is amazing. I know that we've been following, like I've been following you on LinkedIn for quite some time.
Thank you.
Barbara, yeah.
So I am professor working in educational field for quite a while internationally, and I also have a teenage child who is 17 and will be 18, who is neurodivergent and didn't have the easiest way in school in the educational system, and it was quite bad at times, very bad,
Mhm.
and I know from these experiences what caused her to consider certain things, to have certain thoughts. And this is quite powerful to know that directly from someone, from teenager who has been thinking certain ways and not the most positive ways,
Yeah.
and to have this experience.
Yeah, yeah, I know your work is especially like the way you've been, especially your dog therapy is wonderful. The way you actually change the perspective of, like, how education can change the way they teach to the kids is amazing.
I
Yeah,
think it can be one of the answers how to change communities in educational systems to really truly become inclusive communities. Because right now, maybe there is a lot of talk that's become all friends, we are all family, but sometimes this talk in schools is very generic and not very authentic.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Robert,
Yeah, hi.
introduce.
I've known Ibrahim for a while. We've been connected and have done several things. So it's always in my heart to help her out any way I can. I lost someone to suicide at a very young age, so it's been a particular passion of mine, especially when it comes to leadership function. I'm an IT leader. I've managed teams most of my career, and I think it's really important to set up environments where you raise as much awareness as possible, and you give people a safe environment to work in, and you build teams where we have open and honest communications. And that's one of the things that attracted to me to some of the things that Abreen talks about, because she supports that fully. And I'm really very honored and blessed to be here amongst all of you guys here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining. Yeah, Michael.
Yes, I share that sentiment. I have a lot of gratitude to be here with everybody in the panel. So my name is Michael Cortina, and not only am I a trauma survivor myself, I'm a trauma resolution expert and founder and creator of the Cortina method, which is a brain-based healing methodology to resolve trauma and other disturbing emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. I help people to get over PTSD sometimes in as little as a single visit without having to relive any pain. And so as a licensed clinical social worker and licensed clinical addiction counselor, I spend my time healing people around the world and training other practitioners and clinicians through really high quality, in-depth training programs to do this very same work. This topic is a extremely important topic. I thank you for putting this out there. I've lost some people to suicide, multiple people, for everybody from family to neighbors. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I know. I think we've all experienced this kind of trauma, or someone like who's gone through suicidal thoughts, or we've seen that, maybe we've lost our friends or relative to suicide. So I think that's the reason why this topic is close to our heart. So now let's begin our discussion. And I just want to ask that the numbers in suicide is like keep on increasing year by year. And it's so heartbreaking to see that every time, despite whatever like we do, we need to do, I guess, more work to create more awareness about it. But what do you think? What are the reasons why the numbers are increasing every year?
Personally, from my perspective, and noticing this from the people that I work with, the teams I work with, it's been the isolation we've faced over the last 2 years, right? Where we have learned, I think, as a society, as humans, we've learned to bottle more and more up because we've been isolated, right? And then kind of reintegrating ourselves into the whole group dynamic hasn't cured that yet, right? And I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's incumbent upon us as leaders within an organization, per se, to get people to open up, to really understand that there are some things going on behind the scenes that you may not be aware of, so we have to act in that manner. So, I mean, at least from my perspective, and I'm sure Michael, Patrick, and Barbara have a different perspective, I think a large part of it is due to the isolation that we continue to have. Forget COVID, forget about the COVID isolation. I think social media, right? As our young people come more and more addicted to it, they use it more and more, and they're communicating via text, instant messages, they're Snapchatting, whatever. It's creating that isolation, right? So it's broadening that, and you only see one side of it, right? You don't see what's going on behind the glamour of the video or the text.
True, very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would concur with that. I think we're seeing an increase in mood disorders. So as mood disorders increase, then what can, not always, but what can accompany that is suicidality. The opioid crisis was rampant, and with opioid crisis being what it was, that increases levels of trauma for all sorts of people who have been impacted by the opioid crisis. I think, to Robert's point, there's a different angle of Robert's point is in terms of people bottling things up and so forth. I think another side to that is also some access to care problems. There's a real bottleneck in terms of people getting access to care and quality access to care, and then the care itself being sort of efficient enough to sort of keep things moving so that more people could get in. And I think part of what contributes to that access to care as well is still some ongoing stigma.
Yeah.
Those are a few thoughts to share.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Patrick,
can
you
say
think?
something. Yeah, I see the same points like Robert and Michael. And I feel on some level, most of us are not really prepared to these situations where we don't know what to do. We are driven by fear of uncertainty and the unknown, but it's not the job of the schools, Barbara, but it's part of education. We're not really prepared to speak about taboos and
Yeah.
stigmas and duality and judgment. I feel a lot is they feel judged in a way. They feel they need to run away. They feel they can't handle this situation. And I feel there is no, and this goes a little bit in the direction what Michael is saying, there's not really a platform. It doesn't have to be a social media platform, but there's no platform, there's no space
Yeah.
for us to truly speak about what we're feeling. When we feel it's life that we need to let go, when maybe we're just awakening and we need to let go the drama, Michael, right? It's
Yeah.
the drama that needs to go. It's the way we're looking at life that needs to go. It's not the life that needs to go.
Yeah.
And so, yes, this is what I feel is contributing in general. On the other hand, all these legal assistance to suicide, that hasn't helped. That is going in a number of countries. I feel euthanasia, all these kind of things have kind of made it easier to make that step without having to open up and speak about it and being willing to go beyond that and take the life lesson that is actually presented.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Barbara, what are your thoughts on it?
I think that I'm not an expert in this area per se. Let's say knowing a lot about what causes suicide and being able to talk about that as far as considering statistics and patients, but thinking and looking at what's going on with our teenagers too and how they feel. And I remember when I asked my child, "What do you think contributed to your thoughts to the time when you were feeling really bad about yourself?" And I remember when she told me, "I just hated myself. I hated, I thought that I'm just not good. I just don't fit anything, anywhere. I hate myself. I hate how I look. I think I look horrible. I think I'm ugly, and then you are hearing these things and you look at your child's like, how, and thinking, what are you talking about? You're so beautiful. But
Mhm.
you see, where does this come from, right?
Yeah.
These kind of thoughts: I'm not good, I don't fit, I'm ugly. And this is not to say that education, the school is not giving my child good experiences, but there is something that makes our children, certain children, and there are a lot of probably neurodivergent people who are especially vulnerable in this area, I would imagine, and I can ask Robert about it and Michael, where they just don't feel they fit. And
Yeah.
and we just don't do enough in the society, maybe sometimes as parents and together with the educational system. Sometimes you're really stuck as a parent because you want to create good experiences for your child and you work with the school, but sometimes the system is what it is and
Yeah.
it's very hard to break it and all of a sudden change it. You know how to change it, you know what would make it better. Even your child would know how to
Yeah.
make it better, literally, because those teenagers, they are very smart. They will tell you how to improve certain things to make their lives better and make them feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
But I think that's a big problem. We don't engage people who are vulnerable and at the same time smart and know what could improve in those conversations. We are kind of like talking about them, but we
Yeah.
need to engage them in conversations about systematic changes.
Yeah, that's very true. And I agree with all of you. And there are lots of people like joining in. And so I want to thank to Tim, Lydia, and Lonnie, who are joining and sharing their comments. They already shared a lot of comments that, there is like, it's not only one issue that comes up. But if I share, like, I agree with all of you that you've shared your sentiments. And if I share my experience, because when I was kind of in my teens, and I was going through all these, you know what, that when people used to ask me that, are you okay or are you fine? So to them, I used to present a very like a presentable image of myself, that I'm perfectly fine. But deep down, there were so many thoughts going on. And that's exactly when I even help people that they go through. It's like, they will not tell everyone that what is going on in their mind, because there is a lot going on in their mind and they can't tell that what's going on in their mind. So I personally think that as like with like I agree with Michael and Robert. They say that like they actually keep those emotions to themselves, which bottle up, and then at the end it bursts. And so now coming to the next point, because like people are actually keeping all these emotions to themselves, feeling more isolated. How we can break this? How we can just reach out to them more and ask them in a way that they actually share what they've been going through.
Yeah, I think, if I look at it from, so for me, it's looking at it from a company perspective, job perspective, right? And also, when you're dealing with kids or any large group,
Yeah.
right? Whether you're a teacher or anything like that, it really is about active listening and understanding and seeing where your teammates or your students are at. I'll give you an example. When I speak to my team members, right, I have one-on-ones with them every single week. And the one-on-one and the intention of the one-on-one is not to say, okay, I got this done, I got that done, I got this done, I got that done. The intention of the one-on-one is to understand and to really listen to them on how they're doing, what's going on in their lives. Did a dog die? Are you having these kind of issues? Creating that relationship, right? That's what the intention is. I mean, I have no illusion that I'm going to end up being best friends with one of my team members, but I want to set up an environment where I am a safe place, right? That they can definitely come to me. As with anyone within the organization, they don't even necessarily have to be on my team. I want to make sure that I'm a safe place that they can come to. Now, that being said, I also want to make sure that I have the resources available to me that I can reach out to should I see that I think someone is having an issue. I want to be able to refer them, or I want to be able to reach out to someone in HR and say, hey, I think this person is having an issue. I think someone really needs to reach out to him or her. Another example, my wife is a school teacher for 5th grade, and she notices lots of different things with her 60 some odd students that she has to worry about over a couple different classes. And more often than she cares to count, she's had to go to the school counselor and say, hey, I believe this person, this child is in having issues. We really need to talk to this person and get this going. And I think you get that way because you have that awareness, right? That you have that active, you build those active listening skills, and you act with empathy and not just, hey, it's all about the business.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody wants to add more to it? Yeah.
So I think, yep, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, please go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you. I'm thinking in terms of how we prevent such occurrences from happening from as early as possible from early childhood. So again, how we structure school. I mean, we know the schools are educational institution. We all know that, but focusing only on education alone without um, focusing on caring, on really creating an environment in which every child, and I'm going to repeat it, every child must feel safe, because in order to help anybody, you have to, this person needs to feel safe. We hear that in conversation, people who want to do something like that, often they just don't, they just pretend that everything is okay because they don't feel safe to talk about this. So we have to create feelings of safety in as early childhood in school. And of course, animal therapy is one of the best way to do it because kids love to talk to dogs, to therapy dogs, even if they won't say anything to a human being, because that's what often occurs actually in the schools. So creating these situations and changing the school into not only educational institutions, but places where mental health and self-care really is number one first. And once this is taken care of, or we do the best we can, then we can actually teach. That's what we should start thinking about. And there are educational systems in this world that do this, so we have examples to follow and learn from. We don't have to start anything from scratch.
And I would add the, normalizing so many things and breaking down barriers and stigmas and raising awareness, dispelling myths, the myth that if we talk to somebody about it, that might actually encourage them to do it or give them the idea to think about it. This is a myth. This is a myth. It is perfectly fine to talk to people about it. In fact, it can help reduce the probability of taking any such action. I think normalizing that, one of the ways to start to drop the stigma is to understand that in the same way that the same organ in different people's bodies can experience health and wellness,
Yeah.
the same organ in different people's bodies can experience dis-ease. And so just like the lungs, the liver, the heart, the gallbladder, the kidneys can experience dis-ease, so too could the brain. It's an organ like any other. Why would it be any different? And so understanding that, one of the brain's functions, by the way, is to bring thoughts into our awareness. I've heard different numbers, 60, 70, 80,000 different thoughts a day. Either way, lots of thoughts.
Yeah.
And so some of these thoughts are very, straightforward, kind of task-based. Some of them are maybe fantasy-based. Some of them are comical. Some of them are just complete nonsense. So there could be all sorts of thoughts coming through the brain each day, one of which could be this. And so we start to normalize the conversations. And I say that, like, this notion that, you're supposed to check all this stuff at the door. It's kind of like, can you imagine if you were going into a meeting and they said, hey, the meeting's about to start. Check your gallbladder at the door. Leave your gallbladder out there. It's like, what? And so the meeting's about to start. Check your brain at the door. You can't have any emotions or you can't have any disturbing thoughts. Well, excuse me. Checking the brain at the door is about the equivalent of checking your gallbladder. Good luck with that. And so I think we have to just start to break down these stigmas and sort of normalize and really understand such that we can have conversations in a way that's, just fluid and seamless.
Yeah, I want to carry on this, what you're saying, Michael, but also Barbara and Robert, obviously. I feel we need to make space for people to talk about this. There's nothing wrong. We live in a world, everything has to be positive and you have to be in this box and the other box. You cannot cover up what people truly going through by saying you have to be positive. Make 29 more affirmations, I am fine. It's not a solution, and it's not helping anyone. I feel it's really creating that that normality, if you wish, of being able to talk about what we're truly feeling without stigmas, without boxes, without judgment. I feel this is really the beginning, and it's, of course, I'm going a little bit into the mystic and the spiritual, but it has a purpose, because if we are connected to something higher than us and within us, it is much, much easier. If we're just relying on our beautiful mind, and Michael, you're doing such a beautiful job at bringing it closer to us, but also in Chinese medicine, we have the liver who brings the anger, and we have the gallbladder. I don't know exactly what it does, but if we learn, it's okay to express it. It doesn't mean this is my identity. It doesn't mean I have to live in that box.
Yeah.
And from early childhood, I think, of course, parents are totally, I think, overwhelmed with that. How do you know these things? Because we truly didn't learn that.
Yeah.
So it's creating that space for being okay to talk about it, to talk about what we're truly feeling, and not having to filter it through what other people want to hear, expectations, boxes, stigmas, judgment.
Yeah. Yeah.
We cannot address anything if we're not in a space where it's actually seen. So we need to invite people into a space where it's okay, whatever you feel, because it's not the end of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Actually, this is very, and I'm getting again so much beautiful comments, especially by Lygia, and she's saying that that how that even she's referring to the Barro's point also, that this is, I still listen to Lygia saying that the parents saying to the kids that anxiety and depression are just a society drama, and that's, I think we need to be more compassionate about with our kids, and we need to actually connect with our kids and accept their feeling, instead of just just saying that no, it's not there and it's just a drama or this. So maybe I think it's time that we connect with our kids and with the people who are going through any trauma or something. So now I want to ask basically that we, as you mentioned, that we need to create that space, right? That where people can speak, but how we can create this space, because when we actually, it's not easy to to help people, like even because those who are going through with these kind of thoughts, they don't open up easily, right? And creating a space requires a lot of effort. So could you give us a bit more practical tips that how we can actually help, or how we can engage with them? First of all, maybe I think I should ask that how we can spot that, or to see that what people are going through, because they don't say it to them, because I told you that I gave you my example that when people used to ask me that, are you okay, or this, in my mind, inside my mind, there was so much going on, but I used to present a very nice image and people could not even think that what's going on. So how we can actually help people to open up, to share their feeling, and how we can create that space where they feel safe. So maybe you can give some practical tips, so how to do that.
Yeah, from my perspective, again, I think I mentioned this earlier. It really truly is about active listening, right? It's about observation while you're having the conversations. You hear about people who talk about tells, right? When you're playing cards and poker, even in conversations, people have tells, and it takes. You have to take the opportunity to really get to know people, right? And to open up to them yourself as well, too. Yeah. In order to create a trusted space, it's not about the other person that you're trying to, of course it's about the other person, right? Yeah. But it can't be all on them to give, to give. You have to be willing to open up and give as well. You have to be vulnerable. Sometimes you have to teach someone else to be vulnerable by being vulnerable yourself. And showing them that, hey, I trust you to say this to you. I hope that you can trust me. So you kind of have to create that two-way street when it comes to the conversations and the relationship.
Very true.
That active listening is so pivotal. I want to back up just 1 second, because you identified something really key in your question there, Ambreen. that is even sort of might precede these conversations, which is how, because not everybody's going to articulate this. Not everybody's going to bring this forward. And even if you ask somebody, sometimes they could be very good at concealing. They could be very skilled at keeping things under wraps. And so one of the other things, towards the how, I'll just speak to that for now, I guess, is starting to identify these early signs that somebody might be struggling with, mental health, with some sort of emotional dis-ease. And so if it's not going to be articulated, we can look for things. We can look for things like changes in mood, in sleep, in appetite. We could look for changes in behavior. We could look for, substance use, physical symptoms, stomach problems, aches and pains that don't have a real identifiable physical origin as to why somebody might be experiencing the physical symptoms. So sometimes people get very somatic. There could be a decline in personal hygiene and appearance, feelings, just persistent feelings of sadness, of hopelessness, of guilt, shame. Maybe some sort of, it might seem half-hearted or in passing kind of comments by like, whoa, I wish I could just go to sleep and not have to wake up anymore. So now that is a verbal articulation.
Yeah.
But these other ones, these are things that we could be on the lookout for that could then get us to engage in that conversation where Robert's saying that we're going to really be attuned with a lot of active listening and so forth. So I just wanted to touch on that piece that you raised in that question there.
I think that for parents, it's extremely important to. I know we all have very busy lives. Then there are also phones and social media, and sometimes they connect with our lives and even professional lives, and it's very hard to devote time to children. I understand it. There is also dinners to cook and other things to do, and but it's so extremely important to devote at least like 20 or half an hour of undivided attention during which we are just with our child. We'll listen to them and just have a conversation about anything. Sometimes my child asks, well, Mom, can we watch a video about this, about such a, or a singer or something else, whatever it is, can you watch with me? And sometimes I feel like saying, well, I don't have the time right now. Can I do it later? But I feel that when I just stop anything I'm doing and say, okay, I'll do it for you right now. I know it's important for you. Let's sit for 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'm just going to do this with you. And when we are like that together, then there's always opportunity for all kinds of conversation. I never try to preach anything, teach, but when we watch things together, there are things that come out of her, and then I can interject, connect without teaching really anything. And that is how we naturally can be with our children and sense these moments, what's happening. Because if we are constantly busy, we will not see anything. And that's the problem. And I think there were studies, I don't know exactly where it came from, but it was, I think, reported that even 20 minutes daily, but it has to be the time when you don't have your cell phone with you. It's not divided attention that you have just with your child. And for schools, for teachers, it's very hard. And I understand here, and I totally agree with Robert, with Micahel, that this active listening and being vulnerable. And if, as a teacher, you can share a moment from your own life in which you experience something dramatic, that helps too, because it's very hard for especially teenagers, to tell the teacher what's going on, right? Just like that. But I think it's extremely important to make sure that every child in school is recognized for something. Because I know that schools are sort of competitive and you are there so important and praised by everybody if you excel in good grades or sports. But if you're not, if you are
Yeah,
totally different end of um, anything in life, you kind of don't fit, seriously.
yeah,
There are no activities you would be interested in because it's, let's say, only based on sports. Many neurodivergent kids are not totally into sports at all. Some of them are very artistic, some of them are even geniuses, but there's nothing, there's no outlets for them in the school. And believe it or not, sometimes the whole educational career goes by and the child might not even hear one single word of praise. Can you even believe it, right?
yeah.
So, how do you feel about yourself if you constantly only compare to others who excel in subjects, have awesome grades, and you're not there and you will not be, but yet you have talents and skills that are amazing, but nobody ever hears about it? And you certainly don't hear from teachers or from others um, about that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to carry on from there, actually, what you're saying, Barbara. It's about making what is not fitting in normal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and this applies for children as much as for adults. So you're not fitting in. Yeah, so what? What have you got?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
and I feel also, I mean, we're all creating on social media, and I feel this is also important. What are the stories that show there is maybe a death in a non-physical way? What have I let go that was like a death to me? And what was the great lesson and the beautiful things that I've learned from it? So
Yeah.
apart from the active listening that is obviously on top of the list, it's about sharing this vulnerability.
Mhm.
Maybe a situation is not the end of the story.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's just the beginning, and maybe we're dying many times in our life, but not physical death.
Yeah.
Recently, I heard about the metaphor of the lobster, and I was surprised because I didn't know. A lobster lives 7 years, but in that 7 years, it changes its crust. So the heavy, stubborn stuff 25 times in 7
Oh,
years.
wow.
Imagine. So I feel if we would bring that, dying is not the end of the story, and it doesn't have to be physical. If you want to die to something, then what do you want to die to? It's not your life. It's
Yeah.
maybe just something that doesn't serve. It's a box you don't fit into. You know, storytelling can also be story breaking. What story
Yeah.
can I break in order to be me? What's wrong with being me? And that's not the identity traps and all of that and the status. Or, as you said, the sports and the academic results. It's not that. What if I'm brilliant, but nobody has a box for it?
Yeah.
Feel
Absolutely.
it's also our role, and I'm looking at Sorab as well, right? It's very important that we make that accessible and that we talk about that. Whether
Yeah.
it's in personal conversation with the children, whether it's in personal conversation like Robert, whether it's with your clients, Michael, whether it's Ambrin, you speaking publicly online, so do all of us, it's okay. And the end of something is not the end of life.
Yeah.
Anytime something ends, there is something new.
Yeah.
And so I feel if we also create that excitement, if something comes to an end, how exciting, something new is going to come.
Yeah.
And of course, we're also living in that time right now, even if we look at astrology or whatever, we're living in such a time. So
Yeah.
why don't we make it okay? You can die, but not your life. You can
Yeah.
die for something. Maybe you're breaking a box. Maybe you
Yeah.
are not fitting in. Maybe your thing is not sports and academic results. Maybe like Ambrin, like your beautiful son, I come again. Sorry, he's writing a book about the curious giraffe.
Yeah.
You know, this This is the important things. And I feel we need to be examples for that.
Yeah.
This is part of the leadership that we are all called into.
Yeah. Absolutely love these responses, especially like, the way Robert said that we need to show them our vulnerability so they can trust us more and so they can open us. The same thing like, the Micahel actually also said that, we need to connect with them. Active listening is something very important. And Barbara, your point is right on that, we need to connect with our kids. So, and Patrick, I love the way you actually described it. I think it reminded me of Dr. Joe Dispenza, one of my favorite. He said, like, whatever is not like love in us must die. So, we just need, because the one thing that we need is love, and that needs to prevail. That's it. So now moving to the next question. What do you think, like, how we can help people who have lost hope? Because when they have lost hope, they don't see anything positive in our life. So what practical tips or advice would you like to give to them to help them see hope in their life?
That's a good question. So speaking from someone who lost a friend at a very young age to suicide because he had lost hope, didn't like the direction his life was going at that time, had relocated out to Arizona, and I lived in Chicago at that time, so the most conversations we had were by telephone.
Oh, okay.
And back in that day, it was a long distance call. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have email. We didn't have texting. We didn't have cell phones back then. And, he was by himself, and he felt lonely. And as a young man, I didn't know how to help him other than to say, "Oh, I'm sorry," kind of thing, right? So I think it's important for us, right, to remain as empathetic. And it's one of the things that what it did teach me after he did pass away, and I remember those days. I was searching within myself, what could I have done better, right? And one of the things that I realized is that you need to be empathetic to the other person.
Yeah.
You need to understand that there's always something going, especially in today's age of social media, right? And where everybody wants to be an influencer, especially the kids, right?
Yeah.
So everything is all butterflies and roses and sunshine all the time.
Yeah.
I guarantee you it's not, right? So I think
absolutely.
Active listening, and it's not just plain old active listening. It's empathetic active listening, right? It's trying to understand where they are coming from and where they are at by taking those not only social cues but physical cues, vocal cues, wherever that's at, and just reaching out and understanding where they're coming from. I think Mike has much more better put that than I'm putting it at this point, because he deals with guys that are that way all the time. So, but I think to me that's where I try to come from.
Yeah.
No, I think you hit on so many amazing points, Robert. I was just curious that the phone was it still a push dial or was it rotary?
My friend, it was actually a rotary.
Yeah.
All right. The old rotary. There we go.
Yeah.
My dad used to put a lock on it so we couldn't make calls after a certain time. Yep.
Yeah.
No, those really phenomenal points. I mean, when you're talking about the active listening and really, I mean, one of the biggest things I think in that capacity is listening to truly understand, and that's what you just said, and I think that's huge. I love, Barbara, what you were talking about as far as undivided attention. If we're going to do active listening, yes, we can't have our devices there, and we have to really, make eye contact and be with the person. Patrick, that lobster, that's fascinating. I did not know that. And so that's fascinating. And it's really touching on a key thing that it's, which I've heard you mention earlier, which is it's not about our identity. So there's just such a, so many amazing points being made. I just wanted to echo some of those. And, as far as this active listening piece, another huge component there is keeping our own feelings in check. We might hear things that might make us angry as somebody's sharing with us, but sort of keeping that in check when you're dealing with somebody who is sharing with you, when they're sort of in that crisis mode, that at that particular slice in time, at that window in time, that's, really when it's not so much to be kind of getting into our own stuff as much as we want to really just be a receiver and a container for them. Doing this in a way that removes judgment is so key. It can be easy, and by the way, that's sometimes easier said than done. And we're all human after all. We're not robots. But one way that we can do it, sort of an actionable step to remove judgment, is to, if you sort of maybe adopt this a mantra of sorts, that emotional distress is individually defined. So what's disturbing to you might not be disturbing to me, and vice versa. Let's say a 15-year-old comes up to us and talks about how it's the end of the world because her boyfriend broke up with her. And, some 40, 35, 50-year-old is listening to this and they're like, oh, geez, it's a breakup. Well, yeah. You're coming from a place of 30, 45, 50 years of life experience and maybe multiple breakups and so forth. This is someone who has 15 years of life experience. This is a huge magnitude to her, in the same way that perhaps a job loss or a divorce or whatever might be to you. So really removing that judgment. And then just briefly, as far as a few strategies in terms of maybe what people can do is, talk to someone, keep a list of things that are really helpful when you're feeling down, listen to your favorite songs, watch a funny movie or some video clips, cuddle with your pets, get fully present, make it a sensory immersive experience. So in other words, get out of your own head and scan out and look out and see what you're seeing, hear what you're hearing, smell what you're smelling, feel, textures, really get into a full sensory experience to sort of get yourself out of whatever is going on in there. Identify reasons for living. So there's just a few sort of actionable things you could do, but so many great points have been made about the active listening that I wanted to share a bit on that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we have a little time left actually, because we need to finish this. So before I actually close it, I know we can talk a lot on this topic because it is a vast and huge topic. So before I actually close the show, I would like each of you to give one advice to our audience today, that how they can help either themselves or the others to prevent suicide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I go first then?
Oh, sure.
I feel the summary of all the wisdom that has been shared today, I would like to say one of the most important things is being present to self, present to others. Listen to your favorite song, do a meditation, go within, because truly within there is no hopelessness. If we meditate or if you walk in nature, it does the same thing. If you cuddle with an animal, if you are going within and have that connection, that you are not alone, that you're not separated, you must find some level of joy and remember that you can. If you have been given this task, you are here to learn something. And I feel that's my level of advice that comes from presence and choices that we can make in nature, meditation, music, cuddling with animals, and remember, I came here because I can.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's mine for today.
Yeah. Amazing advice. Yeah. Thank you. So who's gonna go next?
That was beautiful, Patrick.
Yeah.
I think everything that's been said so far by this amazing group is really helpful advice, and I would just come back to saying that it's up to us as individuals, as leaders, as teachers, as friends, as family members, to create judgment-free, empathetic, active listening zones that people can come into and trust that you're going to be there for them, just as you need to trust that they will be there for you too. So, to me, that's the best thing that we can do as humans.
Absolutely. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's true. That's the best thing we can do. Yeah.
I would two things come to mind as far as maybe what can help somebody is one, it's a pretty well-known quote that's out there, and sometimes when things are well-known or we've heard it a lot of times, it could just sort of come in and out and sort of be taken for granted. But if you really break it down, it's very powerful that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And we've heard from so many people who have attempted suicide and lived and talked about how the problem went away. It's something of the past now, and how they're so thankful that it didn't work. So it's sometimes, if you've heard this before, don't be too quick to dismiss it. It's really powerful. Permanent solution to a problem that is truly temporary.
Yeah.
And then lastly is to talk to somebody. As Ambreen mentioned earlier, she was very good and skilled at concealing and sort of only showing what she would want others to perceive. And so if you're hurting, if you're struggling, reach out to somebody, friend, family member, counselor, therapist, coach. Reach out to somebody, try. Ask yourself this question: what do you have to lose? If you haven't done it yet, what do you have to lose? There is only upside potential. Your worst case scenario is that things don't get better and they stay the same as they are. So you only have upside potential. Take that chance, take that opportunity, and reach out to someone.
Yeah, that's true. That's very good advice, that we need to reach out to someone whenever we feel it. Like when we suffer in silence, I think the pain is even more. So I think that's a wonderful advice. Yeah, Barbara.
Just quick, my points are similar. I think that to anybody, if you experience a problem that is heavy, and problems are usually very, very heavy, but if you can find someone to share it with, it's going to become 50% lighter right away. So just sharing with someone will lead to a solution. I guarantee that, and you will feel so much better. And I've experienced that too. But sharing with my friends any kind of issues that I had experienced in my life, and also if we have someone in our circle, our own child, who is experiencing some problems, being present, not even talking about these problems, but just sharing some kind of activity that this person would like to engage with because it's important for them, like listening to music together. It's not about what you want to do, it's about what this person wants to do. And you devote time to them, and then you're going to hear some things, some clues, and maybe you will have a chance to help without preaching, teaching, but in naturally occurring situation.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick, Barbara, Robert, and Michael, for being here, for sharing your advice. I am sure that whoever is listening found this conversation more meaningful and more useful for them. So thanks a lot to Lydia, Lonnie, and Tim, and all of those who joined us during this live conversation, and those who are watching us in the repeat session or in the recording. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'm Breen and our audience. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.